spoiler section. Now, in the film, this girl Ruth, her family ends up being attacked by Krim, who the father is a blacksmith and apparently one of the best blacksmiths of that planet. And Krim comes there to get weapons. Yeah, he comes there to get weapons. So one of the things that happens in the film, which I didn't like, was Ruth ends up witnessing this exchange, and really everything jumps off because it's kind of dumb. Okay, Ruth is watching the mom and dad deal with this bad guy with Krim, and then Ruth's brother is listening to a headset, and I'm like, this is in space. Why would this kid be listening to a headset? And I'm not saying that they can't have some form of that, but it looked like he was just listening to like a cassette player or something. And so he jumps out. What happens? Krim throws an axe, gets him in the back. This starts a fight. Parents get killed, and the little girl is left to, try to left for revenge and stuff, because she ends up burying him. And I thought that whole escalation was stupid. I was like, if he came there to just be a dick, just to kill them, then I'm fine with that. But the fact that this kid sitting here listening to, and it's like, read the room. Your sister is looking at something with a very intense gaze. Why would your first thought be, let me see what's going on? And it's not like you took the things out, you heard what was happening. It was like, I didn't understand that part. I thought that was kind of weird. Weird setup. So she ends up burying him, and this is where I'll compare the comics to it slightly, because I do want to do an individual video comparing, the movie to the comic. In the comic, Krim killed her dad and buried his sword and her dad and left it. So she took Krim's sword and was planning to kill Krim with his own sword. But in this film, the dad is like a swordsman, because in the book he wasn't a swordsman. They were like rock farmers. And and that was kind of another thing I didn't like. If you were to show that the family were rock farmers, I feel like that would make Krim look like much more of a bad guy, because they're literally nobodies. But the dad being like this ultimate swordsman, blacksmith and everything, I think that made them a target. So it didn't feel artificial. It felt artificial. It didn't feel right. It felt artificial. It felt like, oh, now he has a reason to go attack them, rather than not having one at all. So she goes to this bar after she buries her family, and when she gets there, she's talking to all of these people, which I thought that was kind of weird, that she just started just yelling it. I would have kind of maybe went to a person here or there, but it's literally a place full of people. You don't even know them. And she just like yells, hey, but I thought she was kind of going to interview people, like, hey, who's a bounty hunter? Who's a mercenary, And then, of course, this dude, Supergirl happens to just be there, drunk, trying to party. And Crypto did not get on my nerves this movie. I felt like he was an emotional weight to Supergirl, and it made sense for him to be there, because when you learn, as I was saying in my spoiler-free section, that she was dealing with, losing her whole planet. Next to Superman, Crypto is the only other thing she has from her planet, and they play that up in this story. So Crypto, and the fact that Crypto's not in it as much does help too. But it was good that he actually had an emotional attachment and a reason to actually be there. The Superman film, he had no reason to be there whatsoever, and he was completely annoying. And it took for this dog to get poisoned in this film for him not to be annoying. But she goes. Ruthie is trying to get help. Some guy comes, steals her sword, And then Supergirl ends up fighting this dude, and then you know she's actually, that's what I was saying, she wasn't girl bossing because she actually got beat or was getting kind of beat, but she was weak because of the Red Sun and because of the Red Sun. Now the reason why she's there is because she's trying to get drunk because the Red Sun, you know, and nullifies her powers, so she was able to get drunk and stuff. But you know, through twist of fate, Ruthie ends up getting over Supergirl. The dog gets poisoned thanks to Krim, and then Krim takes off with Supergirl's ship, and thus goes our adventure. Now, as far as an adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow, I think that they did touch on some of the main core concepts, and mainly it was two. One, Supergirl learning to accept what's happened and kind of move on and let go of the grief and the anger that she experiences, as well as kind of the same thing with Ruthie's character. I think it does land on some of those core themes, but there are some nuances that definitely was skipped over. And the introduction of Lobo was one of them. Now, honestly, if they would have taken Lobo out of the film, I don't think the film would have changed, because he didn't directly have a direct effect on the main story. It was cool he was in the film, but I think if they just taken him out, literally would just kind of play it out the same way. So, I do like the survivor's guilt of Kara. I keep saying Supergirl, but the name Kara. Ruthie, I already stated. I think that they don't do enough with her character. We don't see enough of her in her film. We do see some, but not enough of it. And also a big issue, I would say, kind of with the way the film's approach to the aliens were. I don't like the fact that a majority of the aliens look like people. It's like, I'm like, if y'all aliens, it's like you can differentiate them, because in the comic, at least, Ruthie's and her family's eyes they had these headdress things I would have liked to seen in the comics, and also their eyes were purple. And I'm like, you're not from Earth. I get that there's this thing where, you know, the aliens look like humans, but do something to differentiate her from regular people, because all of the humans, if you don't literally look like an alien in this film, you look like a person. And it's not like a person you can look at them like, oh, okay, maybe Krim's guys, they look human, but you can tell they're alien. But just, I wish they do enough to kind of get her over the edge, but not like a complete leap. Like, you don't see the same emotional depth and development that Kara got, that Ruthie got, that Kara got. So I will say that. Lobo did like Jason Momoa. He had enough screen time. I don't think he needed to be in the film like super much. I think it would have taken away from the two main characters, but I think he was in the film enough. Superman is actually in the film, but he's mostly in flashbacks, but his role is actually good in the film. I love seeing the awkwardness that's between these two characters during these sequences, and I thought he did a good job. Look, I'm not against the man in the first Superman film. I think he does a good job. I think they do kind of make him off kind of wimpy, especially, you know, the way he approaches certain situations. He doesn't have a physical commanding presence like Christopher Reeve or Henry Cavill, but I'm hoping that the next film he'll have that. But I did like the hopeful look that he does have, and I like the way they did approach his relationship with Kara in this film. So, but and Krim, again, he does have a strong opening. That part, he sits down, he's like, "What is that?" And it's pie, and he eating a pie like that. It was great. It was cool. It wasn't even like there was much talking. It was just simple dialogue, but it made him seem very intimidating. He didn't have any development whatsoever. He didn't have any real memorable scenes. He just comes off, in fact, he comes off more like a henchman than the actual main villain. So, and I'm not saying that the Crim in the comics was the deepest either, but he was much more interesting. He got to do much more bad things. But it, and then like I said, henchman, completely forgettable. Completely forgettable. There's one guy that Lobo was after, but he never stands out. Visually, I thought it was a good film, good looking film. There are some aliens that do show up there, like these techno bandits. I thought that was pretty cool. They had technology to let them teleport, and had little robots that scanned stuff and was tearing up the ship and all of that. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I would have liked to seen more of them too. The costume designs I thought looked pretty cool. The practical effects was pretty cool. The CGI was good. Yeah, some iffy moments here and there, especially with some of the flight sequences, but for the most part, it was straight. The one takes definitely deserve thumbs up. I don't care what nobody says. The one takes are some of the best. One takes are always great. But that end scene though, the ending scene where Kara is like, okay, she's doing her thing, epic. And not only that, it was shot like one shot too, but it was epic. That's the type of stuff I want to see from a Superman film. I want to see that type of stuff. Ultimately though, like I said, my final thoughts as far as this film is concerned, I did like it. Like I said, it was one thing, it was one decision I did like, one change that they did like, that I did like in this, in the comment, then different in the comment. In this, at the end, Ruthie is about to kill Crim, and Supergirl talks her down, and then when Ruthie walks off, Supergirl then turns around and kills him. And I like that. She took away the burden of killing this dude from Ruthie, so that way Ruthie wouldn't have to live with it, because she can. She can't. There's not that same emotional attachment to her like that. So she ended up taking it, and I did like that. I thought that was a really good change. Now, I was about to end it, but then I thought about something. This is one of the biggest issues that I have with this film. Okay, so in the film, you end up finding out the brigands, which for some reason they kept calling them brigands, and I was like, are they the only brigands? Do the brigands have a name? Why is it when you say the brigands, you're not just naming this guy specifically? Because I'd be like, I'm looking for Crim. I'm looking for Crim. I'm looking for Crim. Where you at? So I thought that was kind of weird. But in the film, the brigands are kidnapping girls and using them and forcing them to be brides. Okay. Something to make the bad guy be a bit more evil. You don't like him. I mean, he's already killing and pillaging stuff, so that's not like bad enough. But I'm also one of the type of people, I'm like, this look, the thing that happens in real life. But I'm like, it's weird because when it's addressed in like comics, people be like, it's the worst. And a part of me is like, well, if he's pillaging and killing people, he probably would do that too. But I don't think that the film talks about, brings the whole, stealing wives and stealing girls and everything, but it doesn't capitalize on the storytelling of that. And if we could have seen better writing concerning that, because it felt like, honestly, they didn't have to be girls. They could have just been like people that he'd just been kidnapping, and it would have been the exact same thing. We don't see the girls like doing anything. We every time we see the girls, they're like in cages and stuff. But it's like, again, that could have been anybody. That could have been little kids. That could have been war criminals. That could have been men that they was people that they were stealing to, extort other people to pay the money for them and stuff like that. Like that, the way is done in this is just not done right. It's not central to the story. So the fact that they were women being kidnapped, because we don't even see them being brides. They were stolen to be brides, but the entire time they in cages. You don't see them, in the brigand's house cleaning or no stuff like that. Or usually when you see people as slaves in films, you see them doing stuff to reinforce that they're slaves. You didn't see that in this. So the fact that they brought that up, and then there is kind of this moment at the end. Well, I don't necessarily think it was a girl power moment, but I could see where people would get the idea for. So when people talk about the girls being kidnapped as wives, I understand why, because it does feel tacked on, but but the storytelling could have worked better towards that had they actually wrote it better, because it takes away. And another thing about that is it did take away from the storytelling surrounding Kara and Ruthie. That whole thing of it should have been just, this story could have just served as a revenge, them having both their eyes set on getting this one guy, but now they got to look at trying to save all these other chicks and stuff like that. So just the way it was written in the film just wasn't written well enough for it to be put in the film. So and also there was something else that I wanted to bring up as well. Gosh, it was something else. It was something I just thought about while I was talking about this. Oh, okay. There is, and this is another thing that I think the comics did much better. There's a scene in this which, the way it's set up, it doesn't make any sense. There's a scene where Kara is looking for Krim. She corners this guy. The guy's like, okay, I'll take you to him, but you got to put a bag over your head. I'm thinking to myself, you just saw this girl wipe out all of these people. Why would you tell me you need a bag over the head? It ain't gonna matter. But you know what? Never mind. I do know why. No, because they put the bag over her head to take her to a planet where one of the suns is a regular sun, the other sun is a green sun. And they're like, well, a green sun will drain her powers. I'm like, no. Kryptonite will weaken her and drain her powers, not a green sun. That's two totally different things. So they trick her and they take her there, and then the green sun's killing her. Now, this is where, and Krim's sitting there. Now, this is where I would say, okay, it makes sense. If he knows the Kryptonians after him, he would go to a planet where a Kryptonian can't go. That makes sense. Now, in the comics, like that idea, I'm good with. But in the comics, they managed to catch up to Krim, and then Krim had a magical ball that he hit her with, and that teleported her to that planet. And one of the things that you see Ruthie do in the comics is Supergirl is basically dying at this point. She's extremely ill. She's extremely vulnerable. She can't move. And Ruthie has to protect her. And, there's dinosaurs and all of these violent creatures on there. And Ruthie has to fight these creatures to protect Kara. And that was great. That was great. And it showed Ruthie having to, the whole time, Supergirl's protecting her. So now you get to see that reverse. And her just and it again helps with the character develop. But in the movie, that's not handled well, because on this planet, it's nothing. There's nothing there. You don't see any animals and all of that. And then when Ruthie does have a moment, she gets captured the moment she separates from Kara. So, but like I said, there are some moments too where, again, she's looking for Krim. There's a moment where they had this big fight. She's looking for Krim, and between super speed, super hearing, and X-ray vision, she doesn't catch the guy she doesn't find the guy till too late. You would think she would have found him almost immediately. But and then, like I said, I've already talked about the space, her being in space, and it seems like she's actually breathing. I mean, you see her get in a suit at one point, But before that and after that, it doesn't seem like she needed. So, but I will say that there was one scene where she, and this is, she was, it was flashbacks, and she was, thinking about, her parents, and she flies up into the air, into the atmosphere, and she screams, but it's the atmosphere, so she's, so she can't hear. You can't hear nothing because there's no sound there. I thought that was a good scene, even though it's kind of like, it goes back to what I was saying about them breathing in space and all of that stuff. So, but that's why I like the film. I do acknowledge that the film has a lot of problems, and I agree with some of these people's criticisms of the film. But to ultimately say that this is the worst film of like 2026, one of the worst superhero films, is a flop, and like I said, a lot of people I think actually are grifting off of it. They might have some legitimate concerns about it, which I'm cool with and all of that. And if you just don't like the film, you just don't like the film. But to just say this like the worst. Have you seen some of these comic book movies that's come out? Have you seen some of the movies that came out this year? I can show you some movies that's actually freaking terrible from start to end. This ain't one of them. Does this movie stumble? A lot. But it's not the worst. It's absolutely not the worst. Is it better than the original? Yes, it is. It quite frankly is. Even though the villain in the original is much better than the villain in this one. So, but anyways, guys, in the comment section below, let me know what are your thoughts about Supergirl. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with any of the points that I had regarding the positives, or do you agree with any of the points that I had that were the negatives? Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on the channel. And we'll catch you guys later. And happy 4th of July, 2026.